Valour by Gwynne. This book right here. This one. Valour by Gwynne, the sequel to Malice, which was the previous book review that I did on this channel. I really liked this one. I liked this a lot more than Malice, which again, the people are just right. I'd heard from several people that Malice really isn't the best book in the series, and I think that's definitely standing true because Valour is better writing, better characters, a better story. Just overall, I really enjoyed this book considerably more than I did the first one. But I'm gonna talk about what I loved about it and what I didn't really like, and then I'll give you my overall rating in this. So thank you for stopping by. My name is TL Painter, and this is my channel where I talk about books and bookish things and some non-bookish things, and I'm really just all over the place. Let's get into this review of Gwynne's Valour, the second book in the Faithful and the Fallen series. This is going to be spoiler-free, so if you have not read it yet and you're just looking for a subjective opinion, this is the place for you. Hey, what's up? First of all, in Malice, Gwynne's writing was not bad. I don't think that I even said in my review of Malice that I found his writing to be bad. There were some things with his style that I didn't really like all that much, and some aspects of the way he broke down chapters that I didn't particularly jive well with, but for the most part, in Malice, his writing was pretty good. It was at least decent for the majority of it, and then those last 100 or 50 pages of the book were just fantastic. The writing for Valour, though, is solid. The writing for Valour, though, is solid throughout the book. I really enjoyed it from beginning to end. There weren't really a lot of dull moments. I thought the pacing was pretty strong, and we also had a lot of rising and falling action, which is what you want from a book that is this long. If it had been like the first book where there just wasn't enough rising and falling action to keep the pacing of the story going, I probably wouldn't be reading the third book. He did a really great job with the pacing, and the writing was excellent, and I think that his two strongest facets are his combat and his characters. The characters especially have started to really pop off the page for me in this book. So the writing that Gwynne has been executing in this is way stronger than the writing that he had in Malice. It is really great writing throughout, and then there are some moments of absolutely excellent and mesmerizing writing. Especially, once again, he just nails the ending. He does such a good job with the ending, and I'm really looking forward to seeing if he just continues that trend of really solid endings for the next two books in the Faithful and the Fallen series. Now, I will say that while there is a slight improvement on one of the things I complained about previously with his writing, it does still kind of continue to be an issue at times. And that's really just the way that he ends a lot of chapters on cliffhangers that then require time jumps. I just don't really like that. I really prefer to have things in at least a somewhat chronological order. Even if it's just kind of like jump cutting as you would with like a TV show, that's fine if you really need to do that. Because honestly, I love cliffhangers, and all of the cliffhangers that he had in those chapters made me go, I really want to know what happens next. But it just felt like the cliffhangers were put in a place that was really weird. Like in the middle of a combat, we suddenly break away from that combat and go do something that's probably going to take several hours or even a couple of days, and then we jump back to that point that was in the middle of a combat. It was not nearly that bad in this book, but it was pretty bad in Malice, and it's still present in this book, and I think it really just boils down to an artistic choice from the author how he approaches that. And it's not something that I'm really liking, but it was definitely way less confusing in Valour than it was in Malice. Kudos for that, and if he continues to do this, I really don't think that it's something that I need to bring up for every video. I just want to note that at this point I think it's a styling choice that he has made, and even though I don't really agree with it, I'm able to swallow it, and it's definitely much better in Valour than it was in Malice, where a lot of those breakdowns genuinely made no sense and were extremely confusing. But where he improves on the most in Valour is going to be with his characters. The characters in this book are absolutely excellent. Now, I did have something of a favorite toward the end of Malice with Camlin. I really liked Camlin in Malice, but he didn't have a lot of chapters. There were very few chapters from his perspective. There aren't a lot of chapters from his perspectives in this either, but I knew I was gonna like him in Malice, and this book really just proved it. I'll say that I have two obvious favorite characters in the series now. It's gonna be Cohen and Camlin. Yeah, I definitely have a type, but what can I say?
Why is there something so attractive about a bad boy and girl?
Now, that's not to say that those are the only two characters in the series that I like, it's just that they are tied for being my favorite characters overall. I don't hate any of the perspective characters, honestly. There aren't really any perspectives that I'm sitting there going, oh, when is this gonna be over? Now, there are a couple of character perspectives that we jump in and out of in this book that aren't super exciting, but they are important, and I think that Gwynne does a good job of making sure that we get the important information from that perspective, and then we jump back to what is really relevant and what is going to be really enjoyable. So there isn't really a dull moment here. There aren't any character perspectives that I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I really want to be out of this character's head right now so I can get back to somebody else. So overall, the character perspectives are really great and they're all definitely justified. I know that a lot of epic fantasy books where you have a considerable amount of head hopping tend to have characters whose perspectives don't mean all that much to the story and who end up being really boring. What I'm trying to say here is that we don't head hop in this book for the sake of head hopping. We head hop in this book because there's information we need to have and it needs to come from a specific character's perspective, and he does such a great job with that. But second to his characters, John Gwynne does a great job with his big battles. I'll say that I don't really find his one-on-one fights to be all that great. I personally still view, at least from my recent reading, Evan Winter to be kind of the king of one-on-one fights. He does a great job with that, but the big battles in John Gwynne's writing are absolutely phenomenal. He does a wonderful job with those fight scenes. I really enjoy them. He really captures the raw emotion and fear and tension and just the sweat and brutality that comes with battle, and I love it because war is chaos and battle is chaos, especially when you have all of these people just rushing at each other and creating these sort of skirmishes on the battlefield. And how well he does with writing these big epic combats in these books actually just highlights a particular person, or rather a group of people, who are organizing their combats and who are being really organized and intelligent and cautious with their fighting, and just how devastating that level of order is when most people who are in this world just think of battle as this big chaotic thing where everyone just clashes their axes and swords and everything together and sees who survives. It's really excellent, and I think that that part of the story works because of how well he writes the absolute chaos of battle. If he didn't write the battles to be as chaotic and devastating and confusing as they are, then I don't think that the organized aspect of the battle from this other side of the war would be as impactful or important, but instead it's really highlighted because it stands in such a stark contrast to the chaos that he is otherwise writing when it comes to the battles in his books. One more thing before I get to my overall rating is that the book is still adhering to its tropes. I think that's really just what it's going to end up doing. I don't know, maybe it's still going to be subverted, but for me, everything in the actual story has wound up being really predictable, and that's not necessarily a bad thing for everybody. I think that if you want a sort of tropey fantasy, this is definitely a good one. If it ends up having some big twist at the end, it is taking a really long time to set up, and I'd kind of like to see something like that get executed a little bit sooner than the third or even the fourth book. Now, outside of all these tropey aspects of the high fantasy story with the Chosen One and all of that, and the, two big gods clashing and it's the end of the world and all of this typical fantasy stuff, I'm really enjoying the story and I'm enjoying the way that it's unfolding, even if it is kind of unfolding in a predictable way. I'm enjoying the characters, I'm liking the pacing of the book, I'm liking the experience of reading the story, even if it is a little more tropey than something I would normally pick up. So if you like a tropey fantasy, I really recommend this one. I think it is excellent and really well written. But if you're somebody who's looking for something that is super original and doesn't have a whole bunch of tropes and stuff in it, I'll say I really don't think that this is going to cut it. Now, I could be wrong. I haven't read the last two books yet, so maybe it ends up being a little bit better, but for me, this isn't quite cutting it in that department. It's a little too predictable for my taste. I'm gonna get to the next two books still. I do want to see how the story ends, so I'll be reading Ruin next. That's the next one. Yes, I'll be reading Ruin next now that I've finished Valour, and I will make sure to update you with my review of that book here soon. Now, before I get to my overall rating of Valour by John Gwynne, I wanted to let you know that you can like, comment, and subscribe all at no cost to you. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? Yeah, it's free.
It's free real estate.
I would really appreciate it if you take the time to go and do that. That definitely helps me out. Every single one of those things, like commenting, subscribing, sharing, whatever it is, all of it really boosts the video and boosts the engagement and all of that because of the great algorithm that we must all feed or we will die. Thank you very much for taking the time to do that. And now on to my overall rating of John Gwynne's Valour. I gave Malice 3 stars, pretty sure I gave it 3 stars because it was pretty average overall. I was a little tempted, I think, to give it 2 stars. I think I was hovering between those two ranges, but the ending of the book really picked it up for me. Valour was really strong writing, and I don't have a lot of complaints about this because if you take it at face value for what it is, it's just a really well-written, sort of classical fantasy book. And I liked the characters in this. I enjoyed the experience of reading it, but it did definitely fall short of perfect for me in a number of ways, and it's not quite to my taste, at least just yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and give Valour 4 stars, which is definitely improvement over Malice, but just shy of perfect. If you know me, then you know that I'm really stingy with the 5 stars. Gives them more meaning. So Valour is going to be a 4-star book for me. Thank you very much for taking the time to check out this video. If you'd like to see another one from me, you can do so by clicking up here. And until next time, bye.